Good morning. I'll call the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. The first order of business is to stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. On this Super Tuesday. Polls are out. Reminder that the polls are open today if you are planning on voting. I suppose they're open at 7 and open till 7, or is it 8 o'clock? Maybe 8.
8 o'clock.
So you all received your agenda in your board packet. And before I go any further and we ask for approval of the agenda, at the very bottom in the administrative updates and appointments calendars, we're going to add some last minute audit financials. We need to approve the publishing of the financial report that came in late. So with that addition to the agenda, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved as amended.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds, and I would just note that we have a quorum, even though there's one person missing here. So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Second item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Again, these are the routine matters of business that come before us on a regular basis. One is the approval of the legal and I-Compass County Board minutes from the last meeting, and the other is the approval of the auditor's warrants and claims. That's payment of the bills. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second it.
Commissioner Berg moves, seconds. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, let's move on to the general, more interesting business discussion updates. So first up is the Kaneohe County Extension. Mr. Sheehan will be introducing some guests, I take it. But for the record, as you get to the podium, state your name and who you're here to represent.
Awesome. We will do that.
And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us attend today and share with you. I'm Trish Sheehan, the Regional Director for Kaneohe County Extension and 10 counties in our area. I wanted to remind you that the Kaneohe County Extension Office is the front door to the university. We offer programs that are not only for youth and young people, but also programs that reach our agricultural community and serve the general population of Kaneohe County. Some of our programs that you'll maybe have heard about would be PPAT, so private pesticide applicator training, which has been kind of a big thing lately because that's that time of year. We also provide port quality assurance and transport quality assurance training, as well as soils and crops presentations throughout this past few months. And then a women in ag program and Annie's project. But today I'd like to ask that Beth, our local extension educators, Beth Teets and Kylie Sherrod, sorry. It's Kylie. But Kylie, that they share with you a little bit about the 4-H impact report, and then we'll follow up and share with who our farm family of the year is. And Kylie's going to talk a little bit about Master Gardeners too.
A little short.
Welcome, Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth. I'm one of the Kaneohe County Extension educators in this county. The impact report that you guys received in your agenda, I'm just going to go over a few of those numbers that we compiled for you guys. So through statewide, we have 41,580 4-H participants, and 227 of those are in Kaneohe County. Within those, 9,191 are new 4-H members in Minnesota, and 57 of those were new in Kaneohe County. And 6,214 were first generation in Minnesota. We retained about 72% of our youth from 2022, and our youth average about 7 years in 4-H. Not going to go over everything in the report, but just a few things. So Throughout the state, we deliver nearly 2,000 events statewide, and about 24,000 youth across Minnesota showcase learning and demonstrating their growth in mastery in project areas, and 1,217 4-H projects were entered in the Candy, Ohio County Fair this last year. And we couldn't do 4-H without our amazing volunteers, so 3 in 4 of our 4-Hers reported serving in their community. Throughout the state, we had 7,439 screen volunteers, and 71 of those were in Candy, Ohio County. So kind of some other things that we're doing within the county, those were all last year's numbers, so those were basically before Kylie and I. But now Kylie and I we've got our feet on the ground, we've been in here for about 6 months or so. So we're doing quite a few fun things. So one of the first things that I'm really excited for is I'm getting shooting sports going back in the county. So as of right now, we have 3 certified volunteers and 20 plus youth who want to be a part of the shooting sports project. We're partnering with Little Crow Archers in town here to start off with archery, and then we are going to move on to our other disciplines. And then we're hoping to start practice in the late spring. And then some of the other programming, so we are working with the Y. Right now, we are still finalizing some dates and some schedules and stuff. So we haven't got any strict programming on what we're going to do with them yet. But we're also working with Grace Homeschool, and we're going to be doing some STEM projects with them this spring, and then working more with them next year. And then McRae in Clara City, we're also putting on a babysitting class with them.
If somebody has some questions, are you able to take a
Yes.
couple questions? Does anybody have any questions for Dwayne?
Not right now, I
Okay,
guess.
I do have a question. You talk about the shooting sports. So I know that some schools have clay target, thank you.
Yep.
Programs at their schools. Are you mainly targeting those that don't have that available to them, or how does that?
So we can go hand in hand with them, but with clay target, that's only focused on one discipline, that's only focused on shotgun. Shooting sports in the county would be on archery, rifle, pistol, shotgun, and muzzle loading. So they'd get education in all the different disciplines that they want to.
And where are you able to go to practice those disciplines?
So we're still working on the other disciplines as of right now. Like I said, archery, we're working with the archery club. And so I'm hoping next year, once we bring in another discipline, I can finalize where we will be hosting practices for those other disciplines as well.
And this is a regional effort? 'Cause you
Yes, this
mentioned
is a
McRae.
county-wide. So many counties have their own shooting sports program. And we allow other kids from other counties coming in that want to participate as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me,
Oh, Dwayne did.
I got one little question related to that. So they have a competition then too, right? Every year?
Yes, so they do, there is a 4-H state shoot that is held, I believe it's the week after the state fair in September.
Okay.
In Alexandria, yeah.
There's over 400 youth that will participate in the state shoot from across Minnesota.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Kylie?
All right, so my name is Kylie Sherrod, and I am a Candy, Ohio County Extension educator as well. I serve the 4-H department as well as the Master Gardeners, so I'm going to highlight a little bit more about what we're doing with 4-H currently. So we are working with PALS up in New London to do summer programming for their after-school and their summer youth. And so I'm excited to be working with them. We're going to be focusing on some STEM, some agriculture, and fine arts throughout the summer. We are also working heavily with our livestock committee here in the county so we can finalize some things for county fair and kind of just make sure that our livestock is being highlighted there. We also have our dog and horse committees that we are working heavily with. Our dog committee is actually meeting right now, and they're doing trainings with the youth, and then horse will be starting up soon as well. Those two are some of our biggest areas in 4-H that we have specifically in Candy, Ohio. We have also started working on our food stand committee and just kind of looking at how we can better do things at the fair this coming year. And then one thing I'm specifically excited for in my position, like Beth had said, I'm 5 months in. And with my background, I really like agriculture. So I am actually starting an ag leaders group in the county, and I will be going to some of the different schools in the area with those ag leaders, and they're actually going to be teaching some youth in our elementary schools. So it's kind of like a youth teaching youth opportunity. That's all I have for 4-H. Do you have questions on that before I get to Master Gardeners?
Commissioner,
Oh, okay, yeah, I was just going to mention that, so.
Okay.
and then Commissioner Gardner had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned the dog training, the dog committee. Can I rent out a dog to get some?
You can rent out my dog. She needs some extra training. But I don't know if some of those 4-Hers would like to rent out their dogs, but
He's
for
really cute. That's
Yes.
the problem.
for 4-Hers who don't actually have their own dog, they can actually lease from other people too, so they can still be involved in the project if
So
they'd
this
like
actually turned out to be a serious question.
to. Yeah.
Awesome.
Others?
Did you have anything?
Nope.
So I have a question regarding, no, you're going to move on to Master Gardening. Go ahead.
Yes, okay. So if you're unfamiliar with the Master Gardener program, there are 7 priorities that they have. That is to do horticulture skills, nearby nature, plant biodiversity, climate responsiveness, pollinator health, local food, and clean water. Here in Candy, Ohio specifically, I've noticed that our gardeners here like to do the pollinator health and the horticulture skills along with nearby nature. So that's what I'm noticing a lot. They have a passion for pollinators and for prairie gardens. So there is that's those priorities there. So currently we have 23 volunteers in the county, which is a large group considering we are rural. Of those 23 individuals, 2 of those are interns this year, so they're going through the core course and learning all of the information to become a master gardener. Statewide, there's 3,177 master gardeners. And then a few things I wanted to note that is pretty big for the county. We have had several master gardeners this past year reach pretty big milestones in the county. So we have Barbara Boreen, who reached 10 years this past year. Sheila Ruka was 15 years. And Mary Hagan and Becky West were at 20 years. Daryl Anderson and Dale Lauer were at 30 years. And then we actually had a 40-year this year as well, and that was Susan Morris. So these master gardeners have been working a very long time, and they have a wealth of knowledge. Questions on that?
Thank you. Any questions for? Go ahead, Commissioner Burke.
I'm not sure it's a question you can answer because I'm not sure if you're an official master gardener neither. With what's happening with the weather, any advice with all the little blossoms coming out and the pollinators getting pretty active and busy? And
Yeah, so I am not a master gardener, but I would say just with the weather that we're having, there probably is. The plants are probably going to be affected with a little cold snap if we do get snow again, but hopefully they can push through.
Okay,
They're
thank
pretty hardy, so.
Thank you.
And then one more thing I did want to highlight actually is that we are going to be doing a garden camp with the Master Gardeners and the 4-H, so I'm planning on getting them to work together, the 2 groups, so that's also something I'm very excited for.
Any other?
I have more of a comment than a question, I guess. So a lot of people, they go, when you live out in the country or rural area, that it's boring, there's nothing to do. But if you were to contact the Extension Service, I think you'd find a lot of things that could be done or that you can do and enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to follow up. We have selected the Extension Committee works to select a farm family each year, and they get recognized at Farm Fest in August. And this year, the Candy, Ohio County farm family will be the Harlan Matson family. And we will do more, I would say, into June about promotion and sharing that more on a more widely basis. So, but thank you. Thank you for the opportunity today, and thanks for the great questions. So.
You're welcome. Any other last questions? I just wanted to make a comment about when, years ago, when I didn't really understand the role of land-grant universities and extension and whatever. And when I brought it down to sort of a simpler term for myself to understand, it was like land-grant universities do the research.
Yep.
And the extension is like the drive shaft between the engine and the rear end of the car that makes that car move. You're the ones that transfer that information from the research out to the field, to the application. And do I have that reason?
Absolutely. That is our mission, is to bring research-based information and education to the public, to the community. We're that outreach arm of the university.
And it has evolved over the years. I remember when I was a young guy, my dad, in those days, the county agent was really the person that disseminated that information from the land-grant universities to the farms.
Right.
And then in the 70s and 80s, of course, then the chemical companies and the fertilizer companies all started providing that service too. But they were highly esteemed out in the countryside by farmers wanting to
Right.
adopt new practices. So
Absolutely.
thank you guys.
Yes,
Go
thank
ahead.
you.
Well, one more, just want to restate again, your website is fantastic. Oh, you get so much information.
You could get lost there.
Yeah, and information the average person would even think that
Right.
that you would have. And it's great, well-researched information, so.
That's a good point. There is so much information. I keep a few grapevines and bees and I can go on to the university's website. It doesn't pay for me to go to someplace in Arkansas because, it's a different climate, different time of the year. You prune your grapes. So very helpful information that's on there. So
Yes.
thank you again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right, up next, 2024 Veteran Services Office update to the Board of Commissioners. Ms. Appledorn, sorry. I almost-
Good morning, how
I
is
almost brought
everyone
Ms. Sheehan
today?
back.
I'm giving you an update on, I'm sorry,
Just state your name for those listening and who you represent.
Tricia Appledorn, the Candy County Veterans Service Office.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Kelsey asked me to come do an annual report, and I like to do this every year. We didn't do one last year. The numbers for 2023 do not come out till April, so I am reporting on 2022, which you didn't hear the numbers last year, so that's what we're doing today. Our veteran population since I have been here has gone from around 3,300 down to now they're reporting 2,300. So we are losing veterans on a regular, unfortunate basis. Medical care, Candy County receives $29,893,000 a year to be done locally through the VA. Compensation and pension, that's people that get disability or people that have low income or are in a nursing home. They bring in $13,941,000 per year. Education in Candy County is $506,000. And then the state soldier assistance program, I take great pride on this because you look at what Candy County does compared to other counties that are about our size, it's almost double. And that's for dental vouchers, eyeglass vouchers, subsistence if someone's disabled. And we brought in $30,190 that year. Some upcoming events we had planned, I guess we did a breakfast for veterans in November. That went really well. I like to have events quarterly just to kind of get everyone together. July 2nd, we are having a picnic at the Stinger Stadium. It's not going to be at the game or in the game. There are going to be tickets for the game if the veterans want to go. But it's going to be outside where it's flat ground and they're supplying all the food and all the beverages. So that's going to be on July 2nd.
Was
I'm sorry?
on?
No, we are having it this
Oh,
year.
okay, so these are this year.
This one's upcoming, yep.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Habitat for Humanity, they stopped in my office a couple weeks ago and dropped off some brochures. I wasn't aware that they did this. If I have a veteran that needs a ramp or anything done to their house to modify it to keep them in there, they have grants available to help with the cost of that. So it's kind of a hidden thing I didn't know about. I'm glad they came in and approached me, so I do know, because we do get a lot of calls about people wanting their bathrooms updated so they're not have to step into a tub or get ramps to go into their house. We have Veterans Day at the county fair coming up again. That's in August. And we will be teaming with the Wilmer Legion Auxiliary again to provide a meal to the veterans and their guests. We have our district training coming up in April. I thought it was today, then they changed it, now it's in April. So we have that coming up. We have spring training in Mankato also in April. That's a 3-day training for veteran service officers. And then the biggest thing, and I didn't even know that this was coming about, we'd heard kind of some traffic about it. In the state of Minnesota now, if you're a 100% disabled veteran, you don't have to pay any license tabs. You don't have to pay for your driver's license. And starting July 1st, you won't have to pay sales tax on cars. So that's kind of a big deal. So what we did in our office is we sent out letters to all of our veterans that are 100% to make them aware of this, because this is a brand new thing. And like I said, we didn't hear of it. The License Bureau contacted us to let us know that this went through. So.
Mr. Chair, would you repeat that list again?
What?
The list of benefits
Oh,
coming this year, repeat that?
the driver's license?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
the-
if you're a
and the-
100%
yeah.
disabled veteran, you do not have to pay your license tabs, your driver's license fee to renew it, registration, or starting July 1st, sales tax on vehicles.
Does that, do you know if that includes like parts, if somebody gets their car fixed, or is it just when you buy a new car?
When you buy a new vehicle, or a
Or a
vehicle.
different
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trish, thank you for your service and for everything that you do for our veterans. I had a couple of folks ask me a couple of questions. One of them revolves around the Veterans Council, and I seem to remember that when I came onto the board here 4 years ago, probably had something like, I want to say 15 or 20 members listed on the sheet that we get each and every year for our committee assignments. And now it's down to about 8. I don't know if that's current or not, but can you kind of give us an update on the Veterans Council and what that is and how often you meet? And are you looking for members, and who can be a member?
Anyone can be a member if they're a veteran. What I was asked to do by Larry Kleindell, so this was going before I was hired, and it was called the Veterans Advisory Board. And they met quarterly. And then when Larry started the same time I did, he said, I don't want to meet just to meet. I want to have a meeting if there's something to talk about. So, for example, like when the traveling wall came to Wilmer, it was a good time for us to get together and meet. If there's no events coming up, it's kind of, because I get paid per diem. So, I'm willing to have quarterly meetings. I was just told not to meet if we just don't have anything to talk about.
Okay.
And the people that are on there, we have a representative from each district, Spicer, New London, Wilmer, Atwater, Candy, Ohio.
From the service organization?
Yes,
Okay, so how many current members do you have?
I would have
How
to
many
look at
do
the
you need?
list. I would have to, but we do lose a lot of people every year. There's a lot of people that just can't make it anymore or don't want to.
Someone had mentioned to me they thought that the organizations could have 2 members each, but,
Absolutely. Yep,
okay. So if they want representation on that council, they should reach out to you.
absolutely.
Okay. And the other question that I had revolved around, they're wondering about the Veterans on the Hill event on April 17th, and wondering if your office was organizing a bus or a trip, anything like that.
We have in the past organized buses, and it costs about $1,000 for a bus. And then I get 4 veterans that show up. So I don't know how, they can call in and say that they're gonna go. It comes the day of it, and people don't show up. I've offered our van to provide transportation. I have a problem with charging veterans for the bus to go up to the Capitol because it's supposed to be a fun day at the Capitol for veterans to talk to your constituents and talk about veterans' goals and what they want to see happen. But I mean, without that commitment of them having to pay, I don't see how they're gonna. I can't guarantee that we're gonna have a busload of people. And
Okay.
I mean, you have to understand, you pay $1,000 for a bus and then you have 4 people show
So-
up, it's kind of,
So people will sign up, veterans will sign up and then not go?
yes.
Okay.
I mean, we've tried it in the past, believe me, and I think the most we've ever had go was probably one of the first years I was here was maybe 15 people on a 50-person bus. And that's when we offered free lunch and everything.
Administrator Baker.
Commissioner Gardner, I can work with Trish to see, and we can maybe poll some of the veterans to see if they would be interested for this year, and I can
great
work with Trish to see if we would get 15, 25, maybe we could figure out what a cap would be, and we could see if veterans are interested to go to the Capitol that day, and I can
Yep.
work with Trish on that.
And then before I came in here, we were talking about it too, if Swift County wants to team up with us, we could split the cost of a bus, or Litchfield, Meeker County, we can look at options.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yep,
That's all I had. Thank you.
What is the date for the Veterans Day on the Hill, do you know?
the 17th of April.
17th.
Yep.
I've got a question. Anybody else?
I just,
Commissioner Anderson.
well, I just wanted to say thanks for the guys that are here and thank you for your service and thanks Trish for your service as well. So.
So I had the Association of Minnesota Counties has an organization or a function called Futures, and I have the pleasure of being able to serve on Futures. I think we have a meeting this week, but our last meeting was at Fort Ripley, which was an amazing experience for someone who, I have 2 brothers that did serve in the military, but I myself did not, and the amount of services that the Veteran Services officers can bring, and I learned a little bit about the distinction between, is it DVS? Division of, or the National Organization for
Oh,
DVS, yeah. And Veteran Services officers work. But it was amazing to me, the kind of things that are available and the service that is done by County Veteran Services officers, and greatly appreciated that. It was really an amazing experience to tour Fort Ripley. I'd never driven by it 1,000 times, but I'd never been there and toured it. But one of the things I noticed there, and I don't know if you're noticing it, is that the bulk of the people who presented to us and are kind of now serving, I'm 69, and I think you'd almost have to be over 70 unless you lied about your age when you went in the military. Anybody of Vietnam age would be over 70 years of age. So pretty much the people that we saw there were Iraq and Afghanistan and the much later conflicts. Are you seeing their engagement here in the county coming to you for services? Those younger, after Vietnam era veterans?
we do see some of them. A lot of them, unfortunately, do their claims from their computer now because they can do that. I don't recommend it because you don't know where your claim's going to end up. It could end up in Colorado, and they call Colorado the black hole. It's kind of an inside joke, but I mean, it's just the claims take forever. Minnesota's always been known to treat their veterans very well and get claims processed very quickly. So I recommend anyone, and yes, we do see a lot of young people, to go in and see your service officer, because you don't know. Whenever anyone comes in, I tell them about the dental and the optical benefits and the pension benefits for a widow that she possibly doesn't think she's entitled to, but she is if she has low income and needs to go into assisted living. Who would think that there'd be a $1,400 a month payment to help her with that?
And that's a good point. Actually, the executive director of the Association of Minnesota Counties, Julie Ring, made that exact same comment at this meeting because her father lives in Hutchinson and is a veteran, and she was not aware of some of the services that would help her dad in his home. And she's living in St. Paul or a suburb of St. Paul. Hard for her to be out there a lot, so it was a valuable moment for her to discover those kind of things. So again, thank you for what you do for all the veterans, and thank you guys for coming in today. Appreciate it.
I just want to say one more thing too. For 19 years, I've been 19 years. And when I first started, we had a really, really good relationship with the medical centers, the St. Cloud VA specifically. And the VA in the past 18 years has really become difficult. I called to make my husband an eye doctor appointment at the VA, and they wouldn't even let me do that. So, I mean, before, when people used to call our office and want their prescriptions refilled or want us to make an appointment for them, we can't do that anymore. And I know that it frustrates them because I know how to work the phone system and they don't. But unfortunately, we can't do that. It's frustrating for all of us veteran service officers that we can't do that. And the VA has kind of stopped on a lot of in-home health care too, and that's another frustrating aspect, because these veterans do need help at home and they do want to stay home. So.
Commissioner Burke.
Mr. Chair, thank you. That's really a good point, because I remember working for the county years ago, and the VA hospital out of St. Cloud, they'd do outreach, they'd come out here, we worked so well together, and I'm really disappointed to hear that. But I appreciate the update. I also want to say thank you. A little over a year ago, I think I talked to you about, I lost some of my information when I served, and you helped me apply to get those actual dates I wanted. And you did, and it was very helpful. I did figure out it was a year longer than I thought, so thank you. Unfortunately, it took over a year to the information to get here. So you put it in the computer instantly when I was with you, and so thank you for your help. So
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you very much for the
you.
report. Thank you. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, or you feel free to leave if you wish. All right, next up, Resolution 2024-7, the County State Aid Highway 9 Speed Study. Mr. Odens.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mel Odens, Public Works Director, Candido County. Before you is a resolution, and also in the information in your packet is a map. It's a speed study request in the Twin Lakes, Henderson Lake area. And maybe, Administrator, could we do the screen? I just want to point out a couple things on the map. This is the speed study request area. It's on County Road 9 north of Dunning's Pit, goes from the Twin Lake area up to County Road 10. And I'm going to flip the page now to give you the perspective. This is the same area that we were just talking about. On 9, I just want to put it in perspective on speed studies and the resulting speed studies that we've done in the county. And so they're highlighted on this map. We've got a 30 mile an hour, a 40 mile an hour, a 30 on the south side of Green Lake, on the north side of Eagle Lake, on the east side Eagle Lake. So we've got a variety of very similar situations, residential type lake situations with, in this case, there's a commuter traffic element to this piece of County Road 9 and a heavy commercial because of the gravel pits. So state statute requires by resolution that the county board authorize the speed study to be accomplished. So it requires, statute 169.14 subdivision 5 requires that we do a resolution. But one of the things that I do like to point out to the board and to the public is that when the speed study is accomplished by MnDOT, we don't do it ourselves. You have to accept either the decrease or the increase. In some cases, I don't know that I've ever seen an increase, but I do want to point that out because a speed study is intended to get the predominant movement of the speed of that road. And that's what the speed study is for, and that's a safety thing. But I just want to point that out, and so we do have to agree that we do have to accept the findings of the speed study. Okay, but I do think that the chances of this being successful because of the map that I showed you of the other ones is probably pretty good. The other thing I do want to point out is that this is the third speed study we requested in the last year, and we're still waiting on the one in the Roseland. They're still working on that one. Then up on 9 up by Tinewell on the east side of George Lake, they're working on that one right now. So I don't know when this would be done, but it's my recommendation to sign the resolution and authorize the chair and administrator to sign it on behalf of the county, and we'll get it in the queue.
So you heard the recommendation of staff. How do you wish to proceed with this resolution?
Mr. Chair, I so move that we do support a recommendation to a speed study request on CSAH number 9, and this is resolution 2024-7.
So we have a motion on resolution 2024-7. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments? All I would say is be careful what you ask for, right?
Well, there is an element to that, and I do want to point that out because
Yeah.
I think people think, there's a lot of discussion going on with speed law right now, especially in communities. But there's a huge safety aspect to not individualizing your own speeds, and that's studies going on. So right now, MnDOT does them all. So
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. If you would indulge me with a 5-minute recess, I do need to make a very quick phone call, and this next discussion is scheduled for almost 20 minutes, so we'll take a 5-minute recess.
IT, are you ready?
Ready.
We'll reconvene the Kaneohe County Board of Commissioners meeting. Up next on our agenda is Aaron Backman from the EDC to talk about a child care economic development grant. Aaron.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and County Commissioners. The KCED is pursuing a 2024
For the record, you want to state your name?
Aaron Backman, Executive Director of the Kandiyohi County Economic Development Organization, and we are pursuing a 2024 DEED Child Care Economic Development Grant, and respectfully request $70,000 in ARPA funds that are remaining. This grant is due on March 12th. And normally I would try to submit this earlier, but we only got instructions in the middle of February, and it's pulling information together very quickly. We include 2 projects for a total grant request of up to $600,000. Both projects have been designed to be innovative because we're ranked on various categories. And so if you look at the partnerships and the financial plan of the projects, that represents about 60% of the points that you get. And obviously, we're trying to expand childcare in our county. The grant requires a 50% match of cash or in-kind donations. The first project is with Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. This unique project would create a nature-based preschool which is licensed as a child care center. First Children's Finance shows a need for 145 child care slots in New London area. That's the second highest, by the way, second highest need in our county behind Wilmer. The Westby Observatory, located behind the Education Center, would be renovated into a childcare space and hold up to 20 preschool-age children. 4 staff would be hired. They would offer a curriculum that uses nature as a catalyst for education. This would be the first of its type in West Central Minnesota. There's, I believe, a similar project up in the Duluth area, so they're not that common. This program would offer a unique opportunity for children to learn in a nature-based environment. Some of the improvements that are envisioned to offer a safe environment would be improving the child care entrance, improving the walkway to Westby, startup costs, programming supplies, and equipment. Our office is recommending ARPA funds to help facilitate those improvements. The second project will build 4 specialized community child care units, also known as pods, in Atwater. First Children's Finance shows a need for 139 child care slots in Atwater, the third highest need in Kandiyohi County. The lead in on this project, which is tentatively called Generations, is Ryan Walsh, owner of Atwater Ford, and his assistant, Tiffany Heinz. They plan to convert half of the 8,000 square foot building in Atwater, recently purchased by Ryan, that is the former DAC building, that would have 4 units styled as 1-bedroom apartments. Those would be the pods. These units would serve as specialized family child care spaces, each holding up to 10 children. The building, in a separate project, would also include 3 apartments designed for senior housing, 1 2-bedroom unit and 2 1-bedroom units. This design will open the door for intergenerational programming, another unique option for us. Ryan and Tiffany are committed to increasing opportunities for childcare. The value of the building is approximately $180,000 and will be included in the matching funds determination. I just received last night the cost estimates for that particular project is $624,700, of which $314,000, or roughly half of it, would pertain to the child care project. The ARPA funds, which would be about $35,000, would represent about 10% of the child care project. And again, as a reminder, we're ranked on how our partnerships are. So the more partners, whether it's the KCED or whether it's the county or whether it's Atwater Ford or Genio, is beneficial. As you may recall, back in the fall of 2022, we submitted a similar childcare grant through the Child Care Economic Development Program with DEED. We were fortunate in December of 2022, we were awarded $200,000. We asked for $300,000, we got $200,000, which was the second highest in the state, by the way. And that was used for 6 different things, 6 initiatives. A forgivable loan fund, which probably absorbed about 80% of those funds. And also, by the way, thank you, County, for contributing $150,000 to that. The City of Willmar also contributed $100,000. In addition to the forgivable loan, there was a mentorship program. There is a mentorship program that was established, mental health assistance, transportation, and the like. That benefited 34 child care home providers. And it was dealing with health and safety. Sometimes it allowed them to add 1 or 2 slots. I will take those. We need those. In terms of the proposed projects, we are expecting to have a positive impact in our 2024 needs assessment by reducing the shortage of childcare slots. We started out with 937, the most in west central, southwest Minnesota, by the way. And we are down to 883, so we still have a ways to go. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions you might have.
So, thanks, Aaron. So I would open up the floor to any questions. Commissioner Berg.
Thank you. I think you addressed the question, one of the questions I had, and also I got a question for Administrator Baker as well, about the ARPA dollars and how much we have left and how this is going to fit in. I'm not sure we've made a final decision for the few dollars that are left of where they should go. And our priorities, as you well know, since you're directly involved in most of them, it would be broadband, housing, childcare, and mental health. And you can check off almost every box there. So is this where we want to put these dollars? Because we do have some time left to put these dollars. And how much dollars do we put in childcare versus some of these other programs? We haven't had a chance to have much discussion like that, except I understand you're under a time frame, which is very unfortunate. And you know that as well, and you try to get here. But I just wish we knew about the stuff ahead of time, but that's the way grants are. And we get kind of like having to make a big decision here with, a 5-minute presentation or 10 or whatever it is. But my question is that off the top, there's a lot of matching funds or in kind, because if we're looking at only 10% of that, they can do that in kind, and you think both these projects could be sustainable. And I was wondering how, for example, Prairie Lakes, Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center would sustain that then.
Right. Mr. Chair, it's always interesting dealing with state grants because they want maximum time to review and decide what they fund, but they give us minimum time for submittal. So there you are. So we are pulling information together. I must say that I've been pleased with Jennifer out at the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. She's been Jane on the spot in terms of getting us information. I'm expecting cost estimations to come by this Friday or so, because we'll need that for the submittal the following Tuesday. In terms of sustainability, I feel like Prairie Woods is your diamond in the rough. You have a lot of good things there. It's unique, and I think you can build on that. I think there's opportunities. There's certainly a strong need for childcare. I do think that there is interest on the part of individuals in the Spicer, New London area that would like to have their kids have another option. Some of them, as they tell me, are on a waiting list for a year for their kids. So I think that would be good. In terms of the match, if the project is, say, 300,000, I'm just putting out a number, I will know more as the week progresses, but they would need to have a match of 150,000, okay? There are some waiver opportunities, but those are fairly high bars. So for example, one of the bars or one of the waiver opportunities is you would have to create 75% of the new slots would be infants. That is kind of a tough bar. That's the most expensive slots, the least profitable, and because you have to have a high staff to student ratio or a kid ratio. So assuming it's 150, if we plug in 35,000, for example, then we would still need about 115,000 more. I think there's, the county does certainly support the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. I think there's some in-kind that I can see as being countable is the way I would put it.
So
Proceed.
if I hear you saying then, they'd be divided up equally, the ARPA dollars, 35,000 to one project and 35,000 to the other project?
That would be my recommendation. I understand there's about 103,000 in remaining ARPA funds. I'm requesting the 70, and I would divide that. I think there's strong need in Atwater. I think there's strong need at the New London area. And I think that hopefully we can make it attractive enough for the state to say, yes, we will fund these.
May I follow up, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if it turns out that we cannot document enough in-kind funding, then what happens to the grant?
Well, it is to be determined in terms of what the state will, because they, for example, the last one, they reduced it by a third. So we would have to evaluate that.
And then come back?
Yeah. There are some other projects that we have also approached, but they're not as, quote, shovel-ready as we need for this application. So I had talked with the Ridgewater College people. They were very interested in a child care center. I think that would be innovative based on what we were talking, but they were not ready yet. Okay. And I need them to be shovel-ready. But
we may put one more time. We want to get as many slots as possible. And where can we do that at the same time? I think that's what you're trying to do. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aaron, so in regard to the Prairie Woods project, my understanding then would be that the staff out at Prairie Woods are going to run this program, and they're going to need more staff, specifically direct child care.
When you're
staff, yes.
Mr. Chair, when you're talking about child care centers, you need to have a lead person. You need to have a person that's managing the site. Jennifer would be heavily involved with that, but she's going to need instructors and support staff. And so she's estimating that, or they are estimating that they will need 4 of those individuals.
Okay. And so I assume that Prairie Woods has some means of I assume there will be fees for.
Oh, it's not going to be free.
Putting people in there, but I mean, this is going to be self-supporting, or is this going to need to be further subsidized?
Mr. Chair, what I would say is that if we can get to a break-even point for operations, that would be the goal. You're typically not making a lot of money on childcare. Yep. So I would say that if they can get, and if they're looking at, say, $45 or $50 per child per day, for example, that gives you a rough idea of what some of the revenues might be if you were talking that number of kids.
Sure. And just a comment, I'm really appreciative of the work that the EDC has done on childcare, especially in the last 18 months. I know that the previous funding that we and the city and others provided, along with the state grant, impacted, something like 260 plus childcare slots, helped fill those. It was my understanding. So we should see a reasonable decrease in the need, but there's still a lot out there. This is 60 childcare slots in the other areas of the county outside of Wilmer that I think are for the 70,000 that is being requested is going to be a good investment for the county and for our parents and their children.
Commissioner Burton.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Do you have your crystal ball? And Any feeling what's going to be happening? There's a surplus in the state. Here legislative, there's some maybe more grant opportunities coming up this year. And I'm wondering, have you heard anything in the area of childcare or anybody else on the board here as well, or administrator, that instead of spending the dollars now, we might want to save and get more slots for the dollars later on?
Right. Mr. Chair, what I would say is the crystal ball gets a little cloudy occasionally, and what I would say is you can't always count on those chickens to hatch.
Yeah.
I do believe the state of Minnesota will have additional dollars for childcare. They've talked about another round in the fall, but they could very well decide, because I think there's going to be a big demand in greater Minnesota, that they could allocate all the funds. They're not required to do a second round, in which case then we could be looking at a couple of years down the road. So I think we should pursue this. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Chair, and I just have kind of a question or comment. So this 70,000, I'm sure Aaron talked to you, Administrator Baker, and so can you just explain maybe where this money, that we're okay with it with our ARPA funds to spend the money?
Yeah, and really, the board had this last conversation in November regarding ARP dollars. You approved dollars to go kind of to each department. We went over some grant writer, federal lobbyists, the comprehensive land use plan, some public works, some health and human services. A sheriff's office went for training, for online training, and then the majority of it was allocated towards technology. So there are some areas that we maybe wouldn't use those dollars that were allocated. So, and just a reminder, the ARP dollars have to be allocated by December 31st, 2024. So just because we allocated, or the board voted to allocate the dollars towards this in November, we can always come back and change some of those dollar amounts and move some money around. The departments that have moved forward with their approval, they have let me know, so I'm kind of tracking as we go. But there are a few areas where we haven't spent yet. The only thing I would really strongly recommend is to not touch that 500,000 towards technology, because that's really important, because 500,000 is going to make a really small dent in today's world regarding that. Regarding this request today, I feel comfortable with the 70,000. I think this is going towards something really important, and I think it's really neat that it's touching outside of the city limits of Willmar. It's Atwater and New London area, New London Spicer. I would just caution though and remind the board, with Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center, we do a lot of in-kind work already. And so I would just, when I know Mel is going to be getting Aaron some in-kind dollars and really it should be Public Works and our facilities department all do in-kind work out at Prairie Woods. And so I would like to know that concrete dollar amount of what that would be for our staff time. That would be a question that I would want the commissioners to know, that we do send staff out there. Let's say we purchase a new vehicle, we give them the older vehicle to use. And we have always had a great relationship. I'm not saying anything like that, but I would like to know what that in-kind dollar amount, and I did speak with Aaron about that yesterday, that I would like to know prior to submitting the grant. But for approval today, I think this is a great utilization of the ARP dollars to go towards childcare, being one of the three tiers of economic development that the EDC is working on, that the county board has been acknowledging. And I would really echo what Aaron said. Running a daycare center that's licensed through the state, we as the county license in-home daycares. Going into a daycare center, anybody I've talked to that runs a daycare center, whether it's with a school, whether it's something else, this isn't a moneymaker. You have to know that you are doing this out of the goodness of your heart and wanting to better the community and get people to move into Kandiyohi County, work remotely, work within the community somewhere, and have some place. And I think Prairie Woods is a great place that you could send your kids to a center. So I feel confident that this would be the right decision to do moving forward.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelsey, thank you for that. And I guess with that, I would put forward the motion to approve the amount request of $70,000 in ARPA funding as part of the local matches requirement to pursue the Child Care Economic Development Grant application that is due on March 12th.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve $70,000 of ARPA dollars towards this grant application. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any discussion, further discussion? Well, I didn't get my opportunity, and I do have plenty of questions. I'll start out with a comment, though, that when was the date at which we found out about this opportunity, February, whatever?
Third week of February.
So just 3 weeks ago.
Right.
2 weeks ago. One of the frustrations I have felt for a long time is that we get this information and we're supposed to make a $70,000 decision 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes after we get the information. This would have almost been fodder for a special session to talk about this so we could talk about the implications. And March 12th is a drop dead deadline? And is there another funding cycle that you anticipate later on?
Not assured.
Not assured. So the matches, if I did the math, I'm just doing the Atwater one, we got $180,000 that's anticipated that could be used as a in-kind. I assume that's the property that the Walshes own over there. And then, if I also understand the request, they would get half of the $35,000 if we approve that today.
They would get half
That
of the
would go
70.
towards that match.
They would get half of the
Or
70.
half of the 7435, yeah, which comes up to 215.
Yep. And as I mentioned before, Mr. Chair, the estimated cost is $314,000. We're not assured that they're going to count, that is, the state is going to acknowledge the value of that building. Hopefully they will. Otherwise, he will be putting in more money to renovate the facility, putting in playground equipment and so forth.
So my question is, where does the other, to get a $600,000 grant, we need a $300,000 match? Where does the rest of the fund?
So
funding
each
come
project, assuming each project is 300, if each project gets 300,000, if you
Yep.
maxed out the grant, each project would need 150,000 in match, either cash or in kind. That means the whole project's 450,000 if you were trying to max it out. And if they renovate the building and the whole thing is 624,000, they're going to certainly exceed that project cost. Now, if they only recognize just the childcare portion of it, then potentially it could be reduced from that. That is, the $300,000 grant could be reduced. We're not assured of that.
So if I understood you right earlier, you said $624,700 for the renovation of the Atwater building, but 314 of that was for the childcare portion.
Right. And that's excluding equipment, toys, excluding programming, training, training is also an eligible expense. So that's,
So if they're successful in the grant, 300,000 of the $314,000 cost would be covered by the grant.
right, but the 314 is just the renovation that excludes other startup costs.
So will the owners of the building then be receiving rent on that going forward from the operators of the daycare?
Right, and we've advised them to have a modest rent, similar to what was done in Morris when they set up a pod system. I think they were at $100 or $150 per month. Basically, what he's trying to do is cover his taxes. He's not making money on it, he's just trying to cover his property taxes.
Okay, so what does that, have you put a pencil to what that would cost the daycare customer for their childcare? Is that going to be a different rate than what you might pay at the YMCA, for example, in Spicer or here, or downstairs?
Well, I can't say that I'm familiar with what the YMCA would be charging, but I would say that that would certainly represent a cost for their operations, their providers. Will that dissuade people from operating a childcare, pod? I don't think so.
So switching over to Environmental Learning Center, we have not yet identified what sort of in-kind grants might, or in-kind resources might apply to the match for them. that
Mr.
correct?
Chair, what I would say is that certainly we appreciate the ongoing support that Public Works, et cetera, provides for the Environmental Learning Center. If they, for example, are bringing in rock and whatever is necessary to improve the walkway, for instance, that is potentially an in-kind contribution, their time and effort and fuel and everything else.
So if I understand that right, then the county would be providing, let's say it's $100,000 to build the entrance, redo the entrance, or move some dirt and stuff, plus the $35,000 of the ARP dollars. I'm just throwing whatever's out there. So that'd be $135,000, but then there'd be about another $165,000 or $75,000 short for the match, for the maximum match. Do you know where that funding would be sourced? In other words, has like the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission, Wilmer Community Foundation, the EDC, have there been any other approaches for bringing some of these dollars together to meet that maximum grant?
Right. My understanding is that with MMDC, they don't necessarily have grant money right now for childcare facilities. Also, in the case of the Community Foundation, they're typically not supporting operational support.
But wouldn't this be mostly capital costs, like the rebuild of two
It would be
facilities?
renovation, but also for startup costs such as training, et cetera. So typically, the foundations don't get involved with that portion of it. They might get involved with other areas that we're involved with when we've done certain incentives. Like, for example, when we did a childcare event, you know, we are recognizing providers, for instance. They might be able to participate in something like that.
So I serve on the governing board of the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. I was not aware that they were seeking this grant.
Mr. Chair, what I would say, and Jennifer reminded me today, is that they have not asked for a specific dollar amount, but in our discussions with her and with others regarding Prairie Woods, it is our recommendation that they are going to need it for a match. Now, again, it's a 50% match. We have to show if it's, you know, if they're trying to get the maximum grant of $300,000, they'd have to show $150,000 in match.
And so that is going to be operated as a preschool, not a daycare center.
Well-
So I think of that more like if you think of a Montessori school or something where people pay pretty significant tuition in order to have their children attend that I asked the question at the last board meeting, governing board meeting, whether this was going to be a self-sustaining operation, and they fully intend that to be, if not profitable, at least sustainable.
Mr.
That was
Chair-
before there was any conversation about a grant.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it would be licensed as a child care center, just to be clear. Second is they do not, at least for Prairie Woods, they do not intend to have infants at that location. It just does not work for them. Whereas in Atwater, there would be infants at that location. And I might add, just in the case of demand, not all school districts, for example, are increasing in headcount. Wilmer's in that situation right now. Atwater, they are seeing an increase in the number of kids going into the school system there. And I think you're going to see a higher need for childcare in that area as a result.
So in the last 24 hours or less, I've learned of two other potential initiatives. Administrator Breaker mentioned one this morning. I got a memo yesterday regarding an initiative with Peace Lutheran Church in New London. So if we expend $70,000 of the $103,000 of ARPA dollars on these two projects, then We've used almost 2/3 of the remaining dollars. What would we have remaining available, and how would we service any other future requests?
Mr. Chair, what I would say on that is, I am trying to position us to have the strongest application possible. I want to have successful grant applications. I don't want to have to go through and not have a strong application. That means I need to have shovel-ready applications or projects. Yes, I'm certainly aware we have also been assisting Peace Lutheran, and we've been also assisting others. But they need to have all their ducks in order. They need to have their information, their cost estimation, and I don't think they're ready yet. Now, they, on their own, can submit applications separately. So if Peace, for example, wanted to submit, have at it. You can do that separately. You don't necessarily have to wait for the EDC to put it together for you.
Would that also be true of Atwater and Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center?
You're going to get more points if you have experience dealing with child care grant administration. We do.
Mr. Chair, if I may. And this was probably right when I started. The county board had already allocated $150,000 was a match between the city. So we've already put in $150,000 towards childcare. This would be 70 in addition to that. Just to clarify that question. I guess, if I may, my thought would be if we could help others, that would be a question for the board to look at, the remaining allocation, like I said before. And I think there's different ways to be creative within the budget moving forward. I know other counties have dollars allocated to help childcare within rural areas. I think that's something we could explore during a work session when we do the budget work session in April. But I just, would caution that when we say what's good for one end of the county is good for all.
Thank you. So again, going back to my back of the envelope math, so if we're successful at $180,000 at Atwater for the in-kind, if we're successful at 180 and we put in 70, we're at 250, but we need 300,000. Am I missing something there?
It's 35,000 is the amount for Atwater, and 35,000
Yeah,
would be.
I'm just putting the whole amount in. So the total would be $600,000, right?
Yes.
Total request for the grant. And we have to match that at
50%.
50/50. 50% or so
50,
300,000.
300,000.
So we're $50,000 short.
I think
Unidentified yet at this point.
I think we can identify in kind.
Okay. I thought it was an even match, but at 50%, that's a lot of helpful. I guess I'm going to have a hard time supporting using that entire $70,000 request on two projects, particularly one that has identified or has indicated that they were going to move forward prior to even receiving this. Is there a but for either one of these? Meaning will these not go forward but for this ARP dollar grant?
Mr. Chair, there is no but for on this. It's not if, I think, again, to be able to have successful grant applications, you need to show that you have partners. And I think it would be very important in this case for the county to be a partner.
Right, and we have demonstrated that with $150,000 of prior commitment of ARP funds. I'm just at $103,000 unallocated, and I might point out that, yes, there are some things that we've initially identified as places to use ARP funds, which may not take place. But we have till December, and we also have all of next year in order for them to actually be spent. They don't have to, they just have to be identified.
Mr. Chair,
2 years, actually, yeah.
Mr. Chair, but we're not assured that we're going to have childcare funds from deed after March.
So I would offer an amendment, whether it fails for lack of a second or not, that we do an amendment to offer not $70,000, but $40,000 of ARP funds to show our support. That is a motion on the floor. I'd entertain a second. Well, it looks like that motion,
No, go ahead. No, I'm not going to say anything.
looks like that motion fails for lack of a second. So we have a motion on the floor to take,
I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Okay. First off, Executive Director Backman, I want to thank you for all your time and work on this. I know you haven't had much time neither, but that's the danger that we run into and you run into, and don't take these questions personally at all, because you didn't have much time to work with. But these are concerns we have to deal with, and I think, and that's when they push this through like that. I had a couple of questions. Is that you're submitting this as one grant, but not two different grants, correctly?
Mr. Chair.
And we have to do with that, and the motion is for the two of them.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you have to have a lead applicant. We would be the lead applicant for this project, and you have to have a minimum of two.
Okay. So it's all or none then?
Yes.
Okay. And the other question I had, the in-kind that the county's doing in addition to Public Works, this is new to me as well. Any idea what cost that would be or the financial impact? Even though you're doing it in kind, you're going to have some expense on your budget, and how will that affect that budget?
But Mr. Chair,
Yes.
to clarify that, this has been going on for a long time, the in-kind. I don't know if I've never seen any documentation that what we have done for in-kind work with Prairie Woods. The county appropriation, but there's a lot of in-kind work. I'm not sure if Public Works or Facilities Department track that at all. If they do, we could probably get that for the year of what we do do for in-kind. Yeah, so that's been going on for quite some time.
But clearly before we
There'll be
could
there'll
apply.
be a new addition expense though, doing the additional in-kind, right, or not?
Yes, and this expense would be applied to this project, and clearly it would have to be, the amount that is identified as part of that project would have to be a realistic estimate to give to in the grant application. And it is in addition to the $70,000, or in the case of half of it, $35,000 of ARP funds. So let's say it's $150,000, now we got $185,000. And in construction, $150,000 can disappear almost in the first couple of days of work. Commissioner Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a very difficult decision, but I really would like to see this work if possible. And one of the criteria that we're trying to do is with our ARPA dollars all along as to what kind of impact can we do with those dollars? If we can put a minimum amount like broadband in and get other people, stakeholders involved in contributing to that. So that's the question is, what kind of contribution we go forward and we can get that. So if we're looking at a 10% match, and if it was just 10%, that sounds good. But there's so many other questions. How soon, any idea how soon we'd find out the criteria, if they would accept the information that you're going to present now in this next week? And is that going to be enough details that you can give them? Because we're asking for more details. And I would think they would too.
Mr. Chair, hopefully you can trust that I will follow up with the grant.
Well, I know that.
People, and if they need any information, I will submit that. I think I've got a pretty good track record of getting grants approved.
Okay.
Commissioner Berg, or Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aaron, the work that you and your staff and our child care coordinator in that shared position with UCAP, the work you folks have done in this area has been stellar. The economic impact of being able to allow folks the opportunity to put their children in safe, sustainable childcare situations so that they can go back out to the workforce. I'm not sure you can quantify that, but with employers crying for people to be able to fill positions that they have open. I think this is clearly one of the most critical needs that we can impact, and the opportunity, which may not exist after March 12th, to be able to leverage this into from the state deed grant funding, I think makes it almost critical that we approve this motion today.
So, did you have, go
I
ahead.
think probably beat this in the ground quite a bit already. But yes, I agree with you. We do want to create slots for childcare. And the question is, I'm looking at is, are we getting the biggest bang for the buck at this point and get the most slots we as possible? And that's the concern I have. I want to support this, and I most likely will, but that's
Well,
a very big concern I have.
And my question is, are we being good stewards of the ARP dollars by putting this much of the remaining dollars in this project that is for one preschool and one day? I know it's gonna be licensed as a daycare center, but it is gonna be marketed as a preschool. I know that. Putting that much of it in, so if the grant is not awarded, what happens to the $70,000 that we commit today?
If the grant is not awarded, then those funds would be available for the county to apply to other projects.
So they'd remain in the ARP account?
Yeah.
They wouldn't stay with EDC for other projects? Okay. And what happens if the amount is reduced? Where's the balance of the fund, where are the balance of the funds gonna come from?
That's where I have to be creative, Mr. Chair, and talk with both parties, because then I have to go back to Ryan and I have to go back to Jennifer and saying, this is where we're at right now. Can you leverage more monies? Can you put in more monies? Can you, seek funding elsewhere? But it's different with the forgivable loan program, because there we reduce the amounts per provider that we could provide, reduce the loan amounts, but we still undertook them. So it kind of depends on the amount that we would receive.
So I'm about to call the question unless anybody else has any question, but I just want to remind the board that every dollar we spend here today is part of a levy process. Whether we end up short and have to come up with it, whether Public Works does the work out there that, have a cost to it, this is part of the levy process, and I think we need to be very cautious till we get through the next budget cycle of how we spend our dollars and how we commit our dollars, which is giving us 4 more months at the end of the year where we can revisit this after the preliminary budget gets set in late August or early September. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, Russ Hilgert, up next, the 2024 Feedlot Program Annual Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just point of correction, it is the 2023 annual report.
Oh,
It's a report from the previous
this is
year.
a typo then, it says 2020, and that would make sense, I guess, because 2024 has just gotten started.
Just to kind of explain what the report is, it's a performance credit report, assigns credits for the amount of work that's done beyond the minimum program requirements of the feedlot program. In the feedlot program, I'm responsible for performing compliance inspections, reviewing the management records, responding to complaints, registration of feedlots, and permitting as well. So this report kind of lays out how many of each of those that I did, and then anything beyond that is assigned a performance credit. So at the end of the report, you can see there's 84.5 performance credits. Just for reference, last year we received 68.25 credits, and the performance credit dollar amount we received, which we received in 2023, was $17,084.76. So we'll likely receive more than that this coming year for the performance credits. I'll accept any questions if you have any. I'm requesting a approval and signature on this as well.
So you've heard Mr. Hilbert's report. Is there any questions for anybody? I just want to say I appreciate the packet, the information that's in the packet. Given the background information, the financial impact, the policy, it makes it really easy for us to, start to form a basis for, in this case, there's, an easy decision to approve your report. And so I'd entertain a motion to accept the feedlot report.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the 2023 feedlot annual report.
So we have a motion to approve the 2023 feedlot annual report. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just one comment. You've had a busy year again, it looks like. Thank you for what you're doing.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thanks, Russ.
I can get it.
You bet. Fifth today, 3-5. There you go, thank you. All right, up next, Prime West Grant Caregiver Coaching Purchase of the Service Contract Revised. As you recall, we had this like 2 meetings ago, I think, right, Caroline? And
I believe that's accurate.
yeah, so,
Well, good
Please
morning.
proceed.
I'm
Morning.
Caroline Kahn. I have the opportunity to serve as the Health and Human Services Director for Candy, Ojai County. Before you this morning is an action item to do an adjustment to the contract that was approved 2 meetings ago. There were 2 clerical errors noticed during the facilitation, one missing 0. So it should be noted on the packet for you. In the original contract, it was 5,00, and the 10 for the 5,000 was missing. And then the zip code was inaccurate. So just approving the ability to adjust that contract as approved earlier.
so, just to be clear, we already approved the contract.
Correct.
We approved it contingent on it passing muster with Attorney
Correct.
Baker, correct?
Yep. And he has had an opportunity to review.
And so what are we asking for today? Just acknowledgement of?
Just
the-
acknowledgement of the adjustments to, so it was correct on the face sheet when you approved the contract, but in the actual item of the contract, 10 was missing and the address or the zip code for the provider was listed as Burdock instead of New London. So modifying those adjustments to that contract piece. So
So
no
I-
additional changes.
So I'd entertain a motion acknowledging the corrections to the contract that was approved, whatever meeting that was.
I apologize. I should have
Prior
looked, the prior approval.
Mr. Chair, I so move that we approve this revised version of the last contract.
Commissioner Berg approves the revision regarding the contract for caregiving coaching purchase of services. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. You may proceed with the local homeless prevention aid.
Thank you. So could you pull up, I took the information that what you did receive in your board packet and just made it a little bit more digestible via PowerPoint. But this will be the first time we come forward with our envisionment for our local homeless prevention aid dollars that have been granted through the Minnesota Department of Revenue through legislative action in 2021. The purpose of these funds are to ensure that no child is left homeless within a local jurisdiction. I'm going to do a brief overview of what this funding is and then our request for today. So the Local Homeless Prevention Aid, also known as LHPA, programs and projects must include plans to target families who are eligible for pre-kindergarten through grade 12 academic and are in one of the following. They're either living in overcrowded conditions in their current housing, paying more than 50% of their income for rent, lacking a fixed or regular or adequate nighttime residence. They can target unaccompanied youth in need of alternative residential settings, connect families with social services necessary to maintain the stability within their homes, such as housing navigation, legal representation, and family outreach, or both of the following of providing rental assistance for a specified period which may not exceed 24 months, or provide support and case management services to improve housing stability, such as housing navigation or family outreach. It's also important to note that this is aid funding that's coming to the county, not a grant. So each year, the Department of Revenue will certify the amounts for counties and tribal governments by August 1st of each year. This program will expire after aid is paid in 2028. To be used, our current allocation of aid is $73,763 for the 2024 year. We're in the process of currently exploring effective partnerships and avenues for impact to engage in a meaningful community work surrounding our homeless prevention. Some of the options that our leadership team has explored are to support work with community residents already engaged in case management within Candiota County Health and Human Services. Options to support local educational programs that teach youth about housing, budgeting, and skills necessary to maintain housing in the future. Potential partnerships with Lutheran Social Services, and then United Community Action Partnership. And that is what I'm bringing forward to you today, is the opportunity to engage in a partnership with the UCAP for short. One of the reasons that we have chosen to select UCAP as a partner is they already have qualified staff and identified avenues for disbursements of these funds. They are an established local agency that's already engaged in housing instability case management work within our community. So through this partnership, they will help administer an identified portion of these funds on behalf of Candiota County Health and Human Services. UCAP is already engaged in the work in neighboring counties as well, and they would provide services within this agreement, such as determining eligibility, also assessing for other available funding options, to provide case management to improve housing stability, provide rental assistance, support other financial assistance needed to stabilize housing, and connect families with other mainstream benefits that help maintain stability in their home. So today the request is to engage in this contract with UCAP up to the full amount if deemed necessary by community need. But at this point, we don't envision doing a full contracted amount to remain flexibility to support individuals that are engaged in other health and human services work, provide opportunities to engage with some other partners as identified, and really try to maximize our community impact. So this would just be one avenue of many that we'd like to bring forward. It's just the first step in utilization of these funds. Now I'm open for questions.
Thank you. So I just want a couple of clarifying things before I open the board. So you said this is not a grant, it's
aid that's dispersed through the Minnesota Department of Revenue, which is the first time that we have received this type of aid from that area, and the first time they've also administered funds of this type. So it's a bit of a learning process for both.
And it goes through 2028?
Correct.
And was this a result of CARES or the pandemic funding, or just last?
Not to my knowledge, legislation.
And so UCAP is a multi-county agency.
Correct.
So other counties are probably also getting some level of aid.
Correct.
And UCAP is maybe not the entity that's going to administer in other counties, but I'm assuming.
UCAP is engaged with other counties at this time.
It seems like 25% is a fairly high administrative fee.
Correct, and that is why we chose not to engage in it earlier. We really wanted to vet and have dialogue and discussions about that administrative fee, because we echoed that sentiment and really wanted to vet that administrative fee prior to bringing it towards the board for discussion. And that's another reason that we've chosen not to engage in the full amount at one time, because we wanted to see if there were other avenues that we could explore to minimize that overall administrative expense.
And did they offer a reason why it would be so high? Do they have to hire staff?
It was the staff required for facilities. Their cost of operating business has increased. They had to engage in additional work to be able to facilitate these funds on behalf of the other counties. I did check with the other counties, and that is the same administrative fee that was assessed to everyone. But I echo your sentiment. That
Well,
was-
as I look at it in the back of the envelope, math, just about,
18,760.
well, yeah, I see that. As a percent, it's off,
Yeah.
it seems like a lot. And it takes away from services that can be provided when every administrative dollar that gets drawn out of that.
Yeah, I hear you, and that's why we're trying to strategically see if there's ways that we can use it with individuals that are already engaged in case management. We also don't have the capacity to bring on individuals that would far exceed the 25% if we added on staff to be able to facilitate this. They're already a partner in which people are coming to them for different assistance avenues. So it would be individuals, they've reached out that they have exhausted some of their other resources within our community, and this is the last space left. So we've kind of tried to pivot and be responsive to minimize that expense overall as well, but at this point, this is a need within our community for us to bring this forward and engage further in this opportunity.
I sense Commissioner Byrd.
Well, I think the way
Yours was first.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay. Just
your hand was up first.
A couple of questions. Yeah, this is new, and it sounds like it's going to be sustainable, or as sustainable as we can possibly get. But where was it going? I did have, and it can only be used for preventive type services, correct? So we can't use it for some direct services. And UCAP does have a good reputation, that's for sure. And administrative costs, I'm disappointed to see it's 25%. And that's unfortunately a lot of programs we contract out for. It's not uncommon to see that much neither at times. So, but they also talked about then working it in with some other programs they have, and thus we might get a little bit more bang for the buck than we thought. I did have a concern then, and you were talking that the full amount of money, I'll say grant, but it's not a grant. The full amount of money wouldn't go to them contracted directly, but, and you can, that's a question if you just keep that. And it goes along with that this goes back to December 1st of last year. So have we received the dollars yet?
To my understanding, we have received that aid allocation.
We have received.
Yes.
So we got those dollars. And so, and we haven't provided any services yet.
Not through these funds.
And so if we contract out, it's not that they've been doing the job already and want funds for that. This is starting from this point on.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
All right. And the other question I had was, no, you answered my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, so I'll try to address that 25%. It does seem high, but I'm on that UCAP committee, and we did discuss homelessness in the county and in the UCAP region, I guess you would say. And what they do is when they bring in somebody that is homeless, the first week they kind of give them kind of a little bit of leniency so they can kind of get settled in. After that, they have, I think the total window is about 35 days for the program that we were discussing at the time. They meet very regularly with staff because they have to meet certain criteria. So after the first week, they got to start looking for a job. They got to start, getting back on their feet so that they can kind of get moving away from the homeless situation that they're in. And then they got to try to find apartments or housing for them. And so I would say it is pretty labor intensive for staff to deal with the homeless situation that they have. And so that could be one reason why the cost for administrating this here is 25%. I'm just
Yeah, and I wanna
kind of
make it
guessing,
very-
but it is a little bit informed.
Thank you for that. I want to make it very clear, I'm not questioning the work of UCAP. They do phenomenal work. It's just that when you see administrative fees that are 25%, it strikes you as, whoa, I'm not used to that, so.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Wimmer Public Schools will tell us that they have at least 50 students either couch surfing or entirely homeless right now as we speak, that they know of, and probably another 15 to 20 that they don't know of. And these are kids who are coming from families who are living and working in our communities. The Family Promise program, 5 out of every 6 of the folks who come through that program are working full-time. And they still can't
Or 2 jobs.
get what they need in order to have safe, sustainable housing. I'm less concerned with the overhead costs because UCAP is already in this arena, okay? And it is labor intensive for them to do this, to Dwayne's point. So I'm happy that this funding is there and it's that it's going to be helpful for the folks who in our county are experiencing home insecurity, housing insecurity.
Commissioner Burke.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and this will be targeting preventive type of services, but they are the most logical people that would be, they got the boots on the ground, or whatever you want to say, to deal with that. Just a quick, I know you're really busy with a lot of stuff you're doing, but we've had this money available now for 3 months, and just for updates to the board, when this happens, we get dollars available like this, we should probably have a board update that we got $73,000 for this kind of program as soon as, within a reasonable amount of time. So just going forward, just bring it forward. You don't have to make any decisions if you don't even have a plan, but be, planting the seeds with the board that we can look at this. Oh yeah, we got to be talking about this, and when you come forward, we'll know about it already. So thank you.
All right. At the risk of admitting that I've lost focus, do we have a motion on this thing?
I'll move approval of the local homeless prevention aid service.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the approval of the local homeless prevention aid.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Caroline. All right, assessed value update. Val. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I am Val Savor, County Assessor. And yesterday I did send our valuation notices off to the printer, and they will be printed sometime in mid-March with values, and tax statements will come out in the same envelope. But I wanted to just share some general information so that you kind of have a feel as to what's happening in the county. I'm going to start with just some basics first. Every time there's a house sale, it starts with an ECRV, and that ECRV has a lot of data on it, and that data gets shifted to many different departments. The recorder's office gets it for the state deed tax and recording fees. The auditor collects the fees. The recorders also records the new owner's name into our database. The DOR tax division gets capital gains information off that same ECRV. Data analysis tracks the sale and does a time trending calculation to see how the market is changing over a period of time. And then it comes back to the assessor's office, and we do a sales verification process to make sure that it's going to go into this data study. And so after all of that's happened, we get 3 reports that are, we get more, but the 3 are primary as they calculate a time trending. And so the time trending is a process that the state looks at a 21-month period of time, and it tracks how the market is changing over that period of time. And once they've calculated a time trend, then they take the sale and they do a time trend calculation on that sale price. And so when it's a positive time trend, they actually we get a time adjusted sale price. And that new sale price is divided by, well, we take our assessed value and divided it by this time adjusted sale price, and it creates a ratio. That ratio of all the sales that happen within that district are put into an array, and the state always uses the median number as to the data that they send back. And so that's the 3rd report, is the sales ratio by district. And so on that sales study, it's a median ratio, and that's where I start to build my values off of. So if the time trended sale comes back at 81%, I have to, at the end of the day, after I submit my new abstract to the state of Minnesota, I have to have adjusted our values to come up with a value between 90 and 105% of that median sale. And so when we do this adjustment, it's not optional. I have to follow these calculations that the state sends back to me. And so I have to adjust the value, whether it be land or buildings, to increase the values so that when they take the median, it comes in at that 90 to 105%. So with this year, what changes have occurred? City of Wilmer, typically, the median is running about 6 to 8% increase, but keep in mind, it's a median. So we have all the sales under that and all the sales over that. So the median is seeing a 6 to 8% increase. On the higher side, they go all the way up to about 13% increase in the city of Wilmer. The Lakes area are still the strongest sales. It's like the third year in a row. We're seeing about 15 to 18% increase in the Lakes areas. And these lakes are, they just don't seem to have an end to them. Games, Florida, Andrew, Norway, Diamond, Big Candy, Eagle, George, and Green are pretty consistently at 15 to 18%. Green Lake is showing some statistical change that the smaller lots are selling at a way high premium to the larger lots. So the small lots will see a 15, 18% change, and the larger lots may even decrease just a teeny bit. So the market, I follow the data, I do research as far as, where they're changing is, front foot on this type of lot is selling for this, and a bigger lot is selling at this. So the Green Lake is running anywhere from the high side, about $9,900 a front foot, and at the low side, about $5,850 a front foot. But the $9,900 would be for a 50-foot lot with a sandy beach. So there's a premium if you have sand versus just a drop down with stones and such. Off-water sales in the non-lake townships are running about 6 to 11% increase.
I'm sorry, the what sale?
So this would be
Ag?
off-water.
Oh, off-water, okay.
Off-water, non-lake type properties.
Okay.
They're seeing about a 6 to 11% change in value. Keeping in mind that my time trending actually was between 7 and 9% this year. So that's what the market is saying, that it's increasing in a 21-month period of time. It has increased about, some of them are just under 7, and on the high side, it's like 8.99 something. So when they take a sale and they add this time trending onto it, it makes it I have to do more of an increase. If I was doing it off just the raw sale without any time trending, we probably would see an 8 or 9% increase on the lakes. But when you put this 9% time trending on it, then I have to make up for that also. So, but that creates a very consistent market. So if you were to have an appraisal and you see a market adjustment on your appraisal, so if it's an older sale, in order for it to be pulled back to that date of that appraisal, they use this market adjustment so that we're treating all the sales equally. And that's what the time trending does. It time trends it forward to January 2nd of 2024. The ag land, we're seeing, it's kind of, I have both a positive 3 to 8% upward and 3 to 8% downward. There's just a handful of districts that are going to come down just a little bit. But we did have a 10.169% time trend on the ag land, and I did file an appeal with the state of Minnesota with some help from data analysis with the state. And Mike in my office did some awesome graphing and showing the statistical that the second half of the time trending was actually a decline. And so we did appeal it, and they did grant our appeal. So we did not have any time trending on our ag land, which if we wouldn't have had that, we would have been seeing 10 to 15% increase. So that did, and it would actually, it would have, with that 10.169 time trend, the purchase prices would have been, our value would have been way higher than the actual purchase prices. So it would have been very inverted. They're always a little bit because of the time trend, but when they come with numbers like that, it gets really big numbers that are hard to justify and explain, although I can't, it's not my choice when they say there's a time trend. I don't get to, if it doesn't make sense, I appeal it. If it's consistent with the data that I'm seeing, I leave it. And And you won't win the appeal if the data is supporting it. So the on-water, off-water time trends, 7 to 9% were consistent and justifiable. So the ag one I could not justify and did appeal, and like I say, it was granted. Rural vacant land, we're seeing about 15% increase, so this would be your woods, waste, wet, meadow, those kind of lands that are typically purchased for hunting. Those I had sales and justification that I had to go up about 15% on those types of lands. So with the value notices going out shortly here, just so you guys do all have an understanding of what the market is doing, it is going up consistently in all aspects except for a couple little rural areas that with the ag land I had to back it off just a slight. So if you do have anybody that calls you with questions, we do ask that you have them contact our office, and they're not allowed to appeal without the home being inspected. So we would have to set up a time to do a walk through the property, view the property, and then we would either bring the results back to the Board of Appeal that in their district, or they could come and appeal it on their own. But if there is something wrong with our value, we would make corrections and bring it forward to that board. We cannot make changes without having a board make the changes, and so they would have to approve any changes that we did make. The physical change, if there is anything that they are appealing, though, we have to view the property, and that's the most important part for everybody to know, that they can come to the local board, they can appeal their value, but we would have to reconvene the meeting at a later date once we've had an opportunity to view the property. So to make this more streamlined, we encourage people to call first, let us take the time, view the property, and if it's correct and we can't do anything, then the boards would have to make a decision if they felt that it's not valued appropriately. And if they don't feel it's appropriate, then it would come back to the county board, and then you guys would have the opportunity to review it at that time. So the market is not slowing. The inventory is so low, that's a big factor still, that with the inventory being low, they come on the market and they get multiple offers still, not as many as it was 18 months ago, but they're still getting multiple offers, and they're still selling many times higher than the asking price for the home. So, and until that changes, I don't expect that I'm going to have flat years or such a large number of increases. This is, like I say, the third year of constant increases.
So I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things you said. First of all, the first process when you get your evaluation within the next couple of weeks is to contact the auditor or assessor's office to see if some mistake was made or some misunderstanding. The next process is you must go through your local board of adjustment, your township or your city. And our date for board of adjustment again is what, June
18th.
June 18th. And then also I'd like to make the point that because our values go up doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up. And the taxes 100% dependent on what we levy. And it doesn't have to do with if your value went up 20%, your taxes are going to go up 20%. But it is a little frightening when you first get that. So we
Yes.
understand that. So.
One thing that, you'll see, many times and I've seen it where actually your value's gone up and your taxes have come down because of whatever the levy changes had been.
Well, and development that takes place,
Yep.
some big business expands and then the tax base gets expanded.
Yes, so like every time there's a new construction, we've had multiple $1-million homes that have been built. And so when you add that to the tax base that are paying a little bit more, that hopefully that the other homeowners are going to pay just ever so teeny bit less. So it does make a difference as, like you said, development increases. It's distributed over all of the people of that district and county.
Commissioner Burke.
Mr. Chair, thank you. You asked several of the questions I already had, and you answered them. So I really appreciate the heads up, and I think you do an awesome job in your department with this. Unfortunately, some people will be kind of surprised too as well. I'm looking at the numbers. I was surprised that Wilmer came in lower than many of the other areas.
Well, like the other small cities, and I'll be getting these reports to you when
Sure.
I sent the data yesterday, so I'm still fine tuning things. Raymond went up solid 11% just because of sales there. They had quite a few sales and they were all, but you know, there's areas of the city of Wilmer that are, you know,
Yes.
typically that 7%, but there's several areas that are going to be as high as 13%.
I'm afraid of that.
The rest of the small cities were 5 and 7% typically. And there was no, you know, Raymond is kind of the outlier in there, that the 11% that they actually went down just a smidge last year. And so this year apparently the sales are coming back. And I only can look at the sales that happened within a time window from October 1st of 2022 to September 30th of 2023. And those are the only sales that I can look at and that's reported back. I get these sales studies from the state, and this is what the report looks like. And if this number here is below 90%, I have to adjust those values. And it's not optional. I have to be between 90 and 105% when I have them all done and sent back to the state. We send a state abstract April 1st is the first abstract. And then after all the Board of Appeals and all the adjustments are made, we send a second one in August. And then that's what gets, the TNTs are calculated off of the adjusted abstract. And so when I send that in, if my values do not meet their minimum expectations, they would just come in and say, everybody in that district gets 5%. They're not very, they have a consistent, everybody gets it, whether it's justified or not. My job is to make sure that where they needed it is where I make the adjustments, and consistently as to where the sales were, I follow that market, and then I don't just give it you get 5%. It's where, and depending on, you know, what lake sold for higher than this lake, or, you know, if this type of land sold for higher, then, you know, that's where I'm going to follow that market. So I do very specifically fine tune it down to where the sales are at.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for the assessor? Not, thank you for the information. I have been requested to take a short recess.
Thank you.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you.
County Board of Commissioners. Next up on the agenda is a letter of support for Yellow Medicine County and the Upper Sioux Agency State Park. This is an action item. So we received a letter last month from a request from Yellow Medicine to do a letter of support. And at legislative session, I asked, had a chance to visit with one of the commissioners from Yellow Medicine. And I asked him, the effectiveness of just doing a cut and paste of the letter that they sent, or if we drafted our own. He thought we'd be better off drafting our own. And there was, so I give us an option. I think we had already pretty much agreed that we would do a letter of support, but I give us an option of which letter to use. They're in your packet. And the one that I drafted for consideration is supportive, but I think it doesn't have any tone towards the agencies that might be involved here. So I thought it was an alternative to the one that Yellow Medicine wrote. So if we're going to move forward with it, we need action on that letter of support. And which one?
Mr. Chair, I got a question. Can I
Yep.
ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is basically not going against that it was handed back or transferred. It's just asking that there's like some sort of compensation
That they
to
follow
replace
the
the park
Yep.
system or like a dollar value so that the county can replace that park if they need to?
yeah.
Okay,
Because we it's out of our hands
yeah,
whether or not they're going to do it. That's a done deal.
yep.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we support and approve the letter of support that you presented.
So we have a motion on the floor to send a letter of support on behalf of Yellow Medicine County. In the second alternative in your packet, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll reiterate my concern about sending any type of letter under this. At our last meeting, we heard a presentation regarding our Candioi County Park that is currently under a review process because it is essentially a burial ground. My concern with this is that it has some potential to impact potentially relations that we have with the partners that we're working with in regards to our own county park. That is my primary concern on this. This is not a bordering county, and I don't think that every county that has been asked to do this has done so. So I have concerns about moving forward with this, even with the essentially watered-down version.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I think the two letters, I think the Yellow Medicine one, one sent by the Yellow Medicine County Board of Commissioners addresses that. And basically, I kind of look at it like a takings. It's a weird way to say it, but when a county gets put in a situation like we are in right now, where you end up getting limited and then, it could end up being in the future where you would close it down because of a law that the state has passed. The state really should step in and kind of help that county out or that whatever entity we're talking about. And in this situation with Yellow Medicine County, they were, it looks like, it appears, if I understand it right, that they were going to be allocated $5 million, and they're disputing the dollar amount, and they're asking for more like $35 million, and you're talking a 1,300 acre park, and to be compensated only $5 million is really kind of it's almost an insult in some ways. And they're just asking to have a little more compensation so that they can have another park for people to come and enjoy. And in our situation, it would be kind of the same thing. And it's not going against, I mean, they're not even arguing that it can be done. They're just saying that if it is done, the state should step in and kind of help them out for how to replace that.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to echo the same thing you said. We're talking about the replacement of recreational values for the county. And this is going to really would benefit us, I believe, instead of be a detriment that we'd have. And it'd be one more thing that if our situations in the future changes and we have to do something about it, it's going to give us a better position to be in. This will help us, not hurt us.
Yes.
And it does affect all counties. And what I tried to do is I recognize the reparations that are being taken place pretty much all over the state as we speak. But I also agree with Yellow Medicine's concern that they haven't been, the compensation perhaps has not been adequately addressed. So that's what I was trying to do with that. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do understand the situation that Yellow Medicine County finds itself in. I think it's a battle that we don't necessarily need to involve ourselves in this instance. And again, my fear is simply that we want to continue to show that we're good partners with the folks that we're already working with in this area in regards to our own county park. I think we should stay in our lane on this one.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I'd just like to say we're being proactive and trying to cover all bases. And I think we have a good working relationship with all our partners already. And they understand that. And they'll understand where we're coming from. So I think it's important that we are concerned about that. And we support other counties in the same situation across the whole state. And I would think they would feel the same way.
And the point is not with the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. The point is with the state and federal legislature about fair compensation when this happens.
Yes.
Simple as that. Any last comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. So the next item on the agenda is at our last meeting, Commissioner Gardner and myself both brought up in our report outs about the potential benefits of having a board operating guidelines. And there are several guidelines that are that do exist around the state, but more importantly, the Association of Minnesota Counties, within the last 2 years, the research committee of the Minnesota Association of Minnesota Counties has looked at a bunch of the operating guidelines across the state and put together sort of a working document of what different counties are doing. And I think for us to have, well, Administrator Baker pointed out to me that we were inconsistent with some of the actions that we have taken in report outs. And some things require just like today, there's a deadline. Before we have another meeting, we had to take some action. And so if we have guidelines that will help us when those situations come up, for example, a suspension of the rules. You know, if one of the guidelines is that you don't act on something if it's just been brought up, you know, a few days earlier. So what I'm asking is that we pursue the possibility, not pursue the guidelines. I'm saying let's explore the possibility of whether the operating guidelines for the county are beneficial to us. And that not only will help the current board, it will help future boards. In fact, I was thinking about it this morning, that when somebody files to be a county commissioner, probably the first document they should receive is a document similar to this, so they know what's expected of them. And some of it is guided by statute so that we don't have a choice. But I really think Kaneohe County would benefit from them. And what I'd like to do is schedule a future work session, perhaps sometime in April, to invite a commissioner. And the Association of Minnesota Counties first vice president, Commissioner Slavic from Dakota County, is, of course, on the board and at EMC. And they do have some, so I think all of us on the board know Commissioner Slavic. So if he would be available and willing to come and visit with us, or if he's not, someone else, to share with us their experience of having operating guidelines. So my action today is for us to approve us going forward and having a work session. Maybe we can even do it at a meeting, a regularly scheduled meeting, and invite Commissioner Slavic or someone else to address and share with us their experiences.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Bird.
I think it'd be very good to have this kind of discussion, and I make a motion that we support going through with this recommendation for this discussion to take place next month.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? I will second the motion. And so the motion is that we move forward with inviting a commissioner. I mentioned Commissioner Slavic because we all know, oh, go ahead. I'm doing the second.
Go ahead and finish.
To share with us at a meeting their experiences with operating guidelines. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not opposed to the work session. I would hope that it would be not at the first meeting in April because I have a prior commitment on that day. But I do know that in the conversations that I've had around this, and I think we were kind of working on this concurrently, independently of each other, is that the AMC Education Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Rick Anderson out of Lyon County, might also be a nice resource for us. There are a number of different documents out there that other counties are using. I guess I would have thought that potentially we could just start having the conversation by reviewing some of those independently and then start that as opposed to going right away to someone else who is who uses a particular set of guidelines. Dakota County is a little bit of a different animal, of course, than Candido High County is. So certainly they, might have different procedures as well. Perhaps a county more of our size might, to have those sorts of options to take a look at. Again, I'm not opposed to the work session itself. I'm just not so sure that we need to necessarily invite someone in on that right away before we've, as a board, had a chance to even begin our own conversations.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Anderson.
Did you have?
I was going to comment, but go ahead.
Okay, all right, yeah, so I'm not opposed to it either, and I think I'd probably support this. I'm just wondering if would it be better here to have one, or if we should have one at maybe like ask AMC to put on like a seminar for this sort of thing, because I'd be interested either way. It's just that maybe that's a better venue for it. I don't know, but I mean.
I have a thought on that, but I'll.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a thought on that too, I guess. I think AMC would probably take some time before we get this moving. And I made the motion because we're talking about having a discussion. Yep. And that discussion, we could have examples to look at while we're that or before that discussion. And we can also, I think, having a speaker, it would be fine to have a speaker come in for part of it. I don't think we're necessarily saying we even have to take action that day, but to start this process, because I hate to put things off, and I think this would be very important, and I agree with Commissioner Gardner and Commissioner Emdek that this is something we should have in line, and let's just move forward with it. And it says setting up a meeting, and I also imply maybe a board meeting won't work out. Maybe we have to have another meeting. We could have this meeting downstairs. It would be a little bit more informal if it's going to be a work session. Just have a discussion about this. And I think to have a discussion, the longer we're taking the time out to do this, the more information we have available for that discussion at that time would be great. So I think a speaker would be fine. I think it's maybe some other examples that we could get ahead of time would be fine. So I think I would still support moving forward with this in April sometime.
I would just address a couple of the comments that were made. Commissioner Gardner brought up. So I'm not suggesting that we look at Dakota's operating guidelines. I'm just suggesting that we have someone talk to us who is working, could be Randy Kramer from Renville County.
Both of them.
Who have operating guidelines. I don't know, they might not have them there, but there are a lot of counties that have them. Just to share with us their experience and whether it was good, whether it was bad, or not to look at their guidelines and say, this is what we should do. I would encourage everybody, as I sort of see the process playing out, is that between now and then, we all go to the AMC's website, and it was the research committee that the intern went through and looked at all these different operating guidelines that different counties had and pulled out highlights from them. So from one county, it might have been their, how their boards are operating. For the next one, it might have been, how an agenda item was put forth. So AMC did do sort of a background on that, and it's available on the website. It's 24 pages, but there's a lot of indexes and there's a lot of stuff that is covered by statute, but the main part of it is in the middle, pretty easy to cover. And then, in a work session, the five of us and whoever needs to be there legally, we probably pick 3 or 4 from around the state and say, okay, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Somebody's already doing something that looks like it would work for us, we can just cut and paste from their document, and if we would go forward with creating our own. That's how I see this working out, so. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And Kelsey and Steve and I have to do interviews at 1 o'clock, so let's do as quick we got to do we have to approve publishing the financial audits, correct? It was that addition that I talked about to the agenda at the very beginning. You can elucidate on that.
Yeah, and this process will probably change moving forward. So this past year when Doug Host was here with CLA to present the 2022 audit, the board should, next year will approve, and then that encompasses everything. And so typically, in the past, the board has approved to publish this. And so that's what we're asking. It will be in the Lakes Area Review and the Wilmer Tribune. It's our 2022 financial audits that we legally by statute have to print.
And we don't need a resolution for this. We can just approve the publishing of it.
Yep.
So I would entertain a motion to authorize the administrator to publish the financial reports.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then we have AIS Task Force resignation of Harley Davenport, a recommended appointment to assign John Kay. This is a action item. Is that one of your?
Yep, that's my committee. So I can't remember why Harley, but he resigned. He couldn't.
He's been there a long time.
Yeah.
He was one of the founding members.
Yeah. So he resigned, and then we had to have somebody be appointed, and then John Kay came in there, and he's very well qualified. So we decided to appoint him, and we just need the board's affirmation or to appoint him officially, I guess.
So you're gonna move.
So I'll make a motion, that we appoint John Kay to be the at-large member of the AIS Task Force.
So we have a motion to appoint John Kay as the AIS Task Force member. Do I hear a second? Chair will second that. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there any burning items we need to report on? I'm seeing a head shake on one end. Anybody else? And if you got something important, go ahead.
Well, it's not really burning, but 1 minute. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our legislative conference, I thought it went really well, and I think we should just give just a couple of minutes to acknowledge that. And then the contacts we made, it was a very good meeting this year, very good conference. I had a chance to meet after when the DHS, the Health and Human Services Committee, and Commissioner Harpstead was there and spoke, and had a chance to meet with her individually after that. and that was really valuable. So it's those little things like that. So I had a chance to talk about Prime West with her and the 18 County Mental Health Consortium that, and so she could hear it directly from us, and I think she really appreciated having some of that input and feedback. So I'm feeling good going forward on those two situations right now.
All right. And I know the Association of Minnesota County was also very pleased with the engagement with the legislators. I think it was the largest number of legislators that have attended the reception that evening that we've ever had, so that's a good set. Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to cut things off, I just,
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll just say one thing. It was a huge contrast. Last year, we basically had to do it via Zoom because of the snow situation, snowstorms and stuff. And you cannot really put, I don't know, value on being able to be there in person. I mean, Zoom has its place, and last year we obviously had bad, snowstorms and stuff, but being there in person, it's so, you have a greater impact by being there and having a one-on-one conversation with your legislators, so.
yep, I agree. Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I did also, similar to what Commissioner Byrd was able to do, I did get some additional time with the deed commissioner as well, who had been out here previously, and so that was a nice contact to be able to make as well, and we did a lot of solid work over those 3 days. I did want to mention just real briefly, just a small announcement that I did announce today my intent to file for re-election to this seat, and I'm looking forward to continuing to doing the work and continuing to earn the trust of the voters of District 2.
All right, anything else? If not, then we are adjourned. But don't run off, there's at least one document that we all need to sign.